everyone, it's Jasmine. Welcome back to my channel. I know you guys are like, where in the world have you been? It's been literally weeks since the last time I posted. I have definitely been missing, and it's because I've been in the hospital, guys. I have been in the hospital, and I was in the hospital for a week, and then it's been a week since I've been home. So I've just been like taking some time off to recover from abdominal surgery. I had to have abdominal surgery, and it was just such this like long, like drawn out, traumatizing event. So I'm back. I thought, what better way to explain the whole situation that happened? If you have me on Instagram, then you probably already knew that I had some type of issue or surgery going on. So if you're from Instagram, then you'll get the tea or a little behind the scenes story of what took place. But I thought, what better way to explain everything that happened than doing a get ready with me makeup edition. And I am going to do my makeup for another video that you'll see I post later on. I'm going to do a haul. But this video in particular will be a get ready with me story time of how I ended up in the hospital a few weeks ago. First and foremost, I am going to do a little bit of a skincare regimen because I literally have not done anything with my skin for weeks. Like the entire time that I was in the hospital, even as I've been home recovering. So I am going to put a little vitamin C oil on my face. And as you can see, I also have like raccoon eyes. Y'all, I have been going through it. So let's put a little skincare. If you guys don't know, I love Belief. This is just like my homegirl right here, the True Cream by Aquabomb line. I absolutely live by this product. So we are going to do a little skincare first to bring me to life a little bit. And I already did my eyebrows. So it really is all about the story time today. So I'm not going to go much into product detail, but I am going to tell you guys that I've been into e.l.f. products lately. So I will show you a little bit of the e.l.f. products that I'll be using. So for sure, I'm going to use the Power Grip e.l.f. primer. I'm going to use some e.l.f. camo concealer shades just to under conceal, and also just to conceal like imperfections. Also, I am going to use the e.l.f. contour palette, cream contour in particular. And everyone has been talking about the Halo Glow e.l.f. foundation, so I'm going to use that as well. Okay, so back to my story time. So guys, all of this went down on, I don't know what day of the week it was, but it was June 29th. So June 29th, I want to say it was about like 6-ish in the morning. I just had this really weird urge to like go to the bathroom, and not to be gross, or go to TMI into the situation, but there was just like a pain and just like this weird sense of like urgency to go to the bathroom. And after that incident, like I just had extreme severe abdominal pains. Like it's almost like someone lit a match to my stomach. That's the kind of pain that I felt. So a little backstory, maybe about maybe like a month, or well, maybe a little over like a month and a half to 2 months ago, I went to the emergency room because I had also felt like this really weird pain like early in the morning time. And so at the time, it was just like this really, I don't know, it was just like a really odd pain as well, like burning sensation. And after going through that situation, they told me that I had gastritis. So that was a separate incident, but that's a little backstory of why I'm gonna kind of like move the way I did in the story time. So I happened to have a televisit appointment that day, which I usually get up at probably like 7:15ish. I don't have to work until like 9. So Mocha usually wakes me up at like 7:15ish, and I would normally do like a dumbbell workout, shower, and then be ready for work at 9. But I had an appointment that day, a televisit appointment with my neurologist at like 8 or 8:30. So I figured I obviously couldn't like go back to sleep when I had this incident around like 6ish because I was in so much pain, y'all. So what I decided to do is just like stay up. And I think I was up like watching the Kardashians or something until it was time to have my appointment. So I had my appointment. My doctor was like asking me how I was doing. She could tell that I obviously didn't feel well by like my mannerisms and stuff like that. And so I tell her, I'm like, I've been having like really severe abdominal pains. And she's like, you know, asking me to explain the pain to her. So I'm explaining, and she's just giving me like this look like, it doesn't really sound very good. Like, you know, it just doesn't sound like a really good situation. So she finishes up with like, you know, the visit of what we were talking about, because she's my neurologist. And she tells me to just kind of like, you know, watch myself and watch the symptoms and the pain. And if things get like more severe, to go to the emergency room. So that was about 8:30, and I waited until about 11 to go to the emergency room, because I felt like I was just like, okay, this pain isn't getting any better, and she feels like this isn't like good, you know? So I end up going to the emergency room. I'm not going to drop hints or like say what emergency room or hospital that I went to initially, because it's just like a little situation. But we arrived there at like 11:30, and y'all, I know I look like a ghost right now, but I'm gonna warm it up and put foundation on. This is just my concealer. So we arrived there at like 11:30ish. It takes up probably roughly like an hour for like to check in, and then to get like triage. You know, they take you back, they ask you like questions particular to your symptoms and your past medical history, like medications that you're on, you know, all of that stuff. So all in all, that takes like maybe an hour and a half to get in like a room back there in the ER. So at this time, of course, like I'm still in a lot of pain. I'm explaining like what's going on. The pain isn't letting up, you know. So they decide to do a CT scan. So the CT scan came back, and it showed a few findings. Like, it showed that I had like some kind of fluid there due to like a ruptured cyst. And again, remember I told you guys about the history that I had from gastritis, like maybe like a month and a half to 2 months prior. It mentioned having like gastritis, which gastritis honestly isn't like a specific diagnosis. It just means that you have inflammation in like your abdominal region. So obviously there was inflammation in my abdominal region. Like, I knew that in general because I was having abdominal pain. So it like said that, and like some other like medical terminology or whatever. So from there, they were treating me with like pain meds and I think like a nausea med or something. I'm not exactly sure specifically. But they were treating me with those things. So I kind of forget like how long this whole process took, but it was quite a few hours. During that duration, again, they treated me with like mild pain meds, like nausea meds, like stuff like that. And I ended up being discharged at around like 6:30. And I'm just using my sponge just to clean up a little bit. And I had to change the lighting because I feel like I was looking like a ghost, but it's just too much lighting coming in, natural light. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so I was discharged around 6:30ish. We went by like the Greek place to get chicken. I think I ended up getting like a chicken pita or something like that. And y'all, I literally ate maybe like 5 chunks of chicken. But y'all, when I ate that chicken, it was literally like on and popping. Like when I got back home, I was vomiting for hours, y'all. So again, I ate like maybe 5 little bits of chicken, and after that, y'all, I vomited for hours and hours and hours and hours until I was like mentally going through it at that point. So what we did, I was like, I have to go back to the emergency room. Like something is really, really going wrong. So normally, a lot of you guys know that I actually most of the time go to Tampa General Hospital when I'm having like any type of issues that are related to lupus. I didn't think that the situation was related to lupus in any type of way, so I just thought that we go to like back to the local ER I went to, and was just hoping that they could figure out like what was going on. So I get there, it's probably like 1:30ish, and I check back in. Of course, I told the people like I've already been here before, but I was telling them that I started like vomiting. And you know, when you read the discharge papers, it says like if things get worse, if you start vomiting, like all of these, it lists all of these things. And that's what was going on. So I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna go back. So again, it's like 1:30 in the morning. It takes a little longer this time. I just think it was like more people, you know, in the ER at this time for some reason. So I want to say maybe like an hour later, I finally get checked back into the room. They're like asking me all of these questions. I'm telling them like I went home, I ate something that got worse, like, you know, all of these things. And like, you know how you can just tell like people are just like kind of over it. I just had like that feeling that I was being kind of like ignored. My concerns are being ignored, and they just weren't really taking the situation serious. So it was like literally like hours of me pleading to them that like things are getting better. At this point, I was like vomiting like Val and like stuff like that. And I was just like in so much pain, y'all. I can't even I can't even like express. So I was like dealing with all of that. I felt like they were like ignoring us. The doctor, we even like pleaded with him to like come talk to us a few times, and it took us like 3 times for him to even finally come and like talk to me. And I was like begging and pleading for him to do another CT scan. He was like, that's all I can do is like another CT scan, blah blah blah. So after hours of that, y'all, they finally do another CT scan, and the crazy thing is, like, they didn't even come and tell us this themselves, because at this time, when I went back the second time at around 1:30, I had a different doctor than I obviously had during the daytime because they switched shifts. All of a sudden, I had like dozed off because they were giving me payments, and all of a sudden I see the first doctor that I saw in the morning time, and he comes in and he's like, "I'm so sorry, like, this CT scan found some different results, like you do have some type of like internal obstruction. We'll have to like do like X, Y, and Z to fix it." And like they're trying to like apologize and like tell me all this stuff. Mind you, it's not the second doctor who's been ignoring me for hours. It's the first doctor that I saw that morning that discharged me and sent me home. So, wait, let me back up because this is important. So, before they even did the second CT scan and I was like begging them to look into it further, y'all, they were going to, this girl, like the nurse or whatever, she came in with discharge papers, and my mom was like, no, like, we're not going home, like, she's gonna get something else done or whatever. And that's when I went into begging and pleading them for another CT scan. So they just were like not taking the situation serious at all. So so back to when they do find out the results or whatever with the obstruction, again, it's like the first doctor coming in because it was his shift again, or they were like rotating shifts again. Probably happened at like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And he's coming in to apologize and like tell me all of these things, you know, X, Y, and Z. So like at that point, I was expecting, like, I knew something was going on that was more serious, but was I expecting like for them to be talking about some obstructions to my intestines or anything like that? Of course not. Like, nobody thinks that it's gonna be something like super serious. So at that point, like, mentally I was just like out of there, like completely freaking out. Like everything they were saying was just like going over my head. I just didn't even, I was just like out of it, just out of it. So at this point, they pretty much tell me that they want to admit me, and they were telling me that I was gonna have to like do this thing where they're gonna put these tubes up my nose and just like, just all this stuff. So I was just overwhelmed and just feeling like emotionally just you know, out of it. So of course, like by this time, like emotional and just like all of that, y'all, it was just a mess. So they were telling me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with GN tubes, but they were telling me that they were gonna have to do like put GN tubes like up my nose, down my esophagus, and my stomach. They have to like pump out your stomach and like do all of this stuff. And they're telling me like, oh, we have to get you admitted, and like we have to do this and we have to do that. And so like before we let them do this thing that they're trying to do with the GN tubes, me and my mom, we like went into prayer. And I don't know, the whole time I was in prayer, it's just like my mind like was like, and my spirit just felt like unsettled, and my mind was just telling me that I should like ask them if I could be transported, because at that point, like, I just wasn't trusting them, and I was just like nervous about the whole situation, because for the last few hours you've been ignoring me and telling me nothing's wrong with me, that I just have gastritis. But then now you want me to be like all trustworthy and say like, you know, you have like X, Y, and Z going on. And I just didn't trust them. So at that time, I felt like super pressured. Like they were coming in with the GN tubes to pump my stomach, and they did that. And y'all, it was just like terrible. Like it feels like something is just like stuck in your esophagus. And then with me, I have issues like with my esophagus because I have something called crest, and it's like something that stems from like having Sjögren's and lupus, and my esophagus is just like narrowed, and I have like difficulty swallowing and like all of these things. And with these tubes down my esophagus, y'all, it just felt unsettling, and I just like started crying. I was like begging them to take them out of me. It was just like this really dramatic thing. So they did that. They took it out, and I like told them, I was like, I want to be like transported. Like, this is just too much. Actually, the crazy thing is, I told them that I had wanted to be transported from the get-go when they first came in and they start overwhelming me with like all of this information. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and put the transport in. But what was weird to me was that they still tried to come in and like put the GN tubes in and everything. Cause I was like, well, if a patient is telling you they generally want to be transported like to another medical facility or hospital, then why are you still like trying to do stuff? But I felt so pressured because obviously I didn't know like if this was like life or death or what the situation was. So I just kind of went with the whole situation when they were telling me that I had to get the GN tubes put in or whatever. So yeah, so then back to after they put it in, I freaked out and I begged them to take them out. So at this point, I was pretty much just waiting for them to transport me. And like in the meantime, a few more people came in and they were like trying to explain stuff and like all this kind of stuff. But I was just like over it with them, honestly. I didn't trust them again, and then they were like just, I don't know, just like overwhelming me and making me feel like, just really, really overwhelmed, super overwhelmed. So it probably takes like 2 hours for them to finish their request because the EMT had to come from Tampa General Hospital to pick me up from where I was at. And it took like a good 2 hours. Maybe I was waiting. And I think they may have gotten there around like 8, maybe 8 o'clock. And the EMT like already told me it was gonna be like a good hour to like hour and a half, depending on traffic there. So it honestly didn't feel like a crazy ride. The ride in general just felt like it just made me feel like a little nauseous, like I was already nauseous. So then on top of that, it was just a lot. So by this time, it obviously is July 1st by this time, and I make it to TGH. Everyone's waiting for me. I have a room waiting for me, and I get admitted there and everything. They take some x-rays and they confirm that I have an obstruction. They didn't quite know what kind yet or what like organ that it was bothering, but with you having an obstruction, what happens is most of the time people who have already had abdominal surgery in their past, scarring from that abdominal surgery creates adhesion to like your organs. So whether it be your intestines or your bowels or like whatever stuff is in there. Another thing that I did not know, y'all, is that your body is kind of like free flowing. So I thought your organs were just in there and like stuck in one spot, and y'all, they're not. They're like float. They're generally in one section, but they're like floating around. They're not like stuck in there. And I didn't know that. So I was just like not understanding how they were saying that my organs or like something in there was obstructed due to this adhesion. So during this time, they talked to me about replacing the NG tubes just in case I need to have my stomach pumped again. But this time it was kind of explained to me as like they would do either or. So I thought that they were saying they would either do the NG tube procedure or I would need surgery. But what they wanted to do was monitor me for like a day or two to figure it out. So that's what they generally did. So I was there again. That was like July 1st, the next day, and I stayed there like being monitored for like another day or two. So on July 3rd, they wanted me to do an upper GI study. So that's where you swallow like this white chalky stuff. It's called barium, but it's like this drink. It looks like a really thick, like milky coated substance, but it's not milk based at all. It's just like this thing they use. So what they do is you drink it and then they take x-ray images of like it passing along like your GI system. So like your esophagus, like down, like the whole 9 yards, all the way until it gets to your bowels. So generally, like in those 2 days, the pain and the nausea had kind of subsided, but then again, I was on a lot of medication. So I don't really like know if it subsided. But what I think occurred is I think after having the upper GI study, I think that the barium was just like too much on my stomach, or like whatever the obstruction was. I just think that the barium made it worse. So like later that evening and that afternoon, I had started to feel super sick again, and the nausea had started coming back, and like all of the above. So during that time, they of course did more x-rays, and the x-ray just showed like a lot of fluid in my abdomen, and just the doctor that I was seeing was really concerned. So she decided that unlike what I thought, previously they made it seem like, you know, maybe surgery wouldn't have needed to happen. Now they were going to surgery. Now they were talking about the option of surgery again, and she was pretty much telling me that I had surgery in the morning at 7:30. So with all of that happening at once, of course, I just like freaked out. I was like, oh my Lord, like mental breakdown. I totally like shut down. I was just like so hot about this situation, because in my mind I had thought I didn't need surgery, and I thought everything was like okay. And you guys know, like when you feel like you've kind of battled something, it's like behind you, and then it was just really depressing, like realizing that the situation didn't really pan out the way I had thought it panned out. So I wasn't really excited about having the surgery the next day. I was really nervous about it. So my surgery was bright and early, 7:30 in the morning the next day. Like maybe at 6, the tech came, she prepped me, she got me ready for surgery. They have to like prep you with these like cleansing cloths or whatever pre-surgery. So she like wiped me from head to toe in these cloths. And then they took me down to like the pre-surgery room. My parents had woke up pretty early to meet me like pre-surgery, but they got stopped by like 2 trains. It was just like all this crazy stuff. But what ended up happening was general surgery was running like a little behind. And so they ended up sneaking my parents into the pre-surgical room, so they were able to see me pre-surgery, and everything was cool with that. So they did that. Of course, I went into surgery. Everything went fine. I don't even remember how long the surgery took. I didn't ask them. afterwards, but everything went fine. The only thing that I like was bothered by is, of course, when I woke up I had those NG tube things in me. So I woke up to the thing like in my throat. I didn't freak out at first, but there was so much drama behind that because I wanted it out of me. I didn't feel like I needed it, but I guess what they do is they leave it in you just in case you have nausea. And what happens sometimes is when you're constantly vomiting is you you can like get an infection in your abdominal from like all of the vomiting and stuff like that post surgery. So I kept it in. I was trying to be a trooper. I kept it in for like 3 hours, y'all. And what ended up happening is it just was like irritating me. And I turned into such a Karen, y'all. I told the lady, I was like, if y'all don't get this, I had to ask like 3 times, which I feel like as a patient, like I'm not gonna keep asking you something over and over again. So I asked her like 3 times, and it wasn't the nurse's fault. She was trying to get like the clearance or the say-so from general surgery for me to take it out. And I guess they were like ignoring her. They wanted me to keep it in or something. But I looked at her and I was like, I'm going to take these out of my face if y'all don't get somebody to come in here to get these out of me. And then my dad looked at her and he was like, she's going to do it. She's going to take those out of her face. And so then it just like caused all this commotion. And then my mom got mad at me. And then she jumped up with her purse, like all dramatic, like she was in telenova. And she like ran out of the room. She's like upset with me. And I was like, I don't care. Cause you know, sometimes I can be like patient and I can be like a really nice person. But I gave myself 3 hours. I wasn't nauseous. I didn't need them in. And I wanted them out of I wanted them out. Like, you know what I mean? And so I just feel like as a doctor or as a bystander, whatever, if you would be uncomfortable with something, then you know what I mean? You have no say so. Like, unless the doctor is going to go around with NG tubes, you know, in their face or in their head when they're walking around, then I don't think they should have anything to say when a patient is like, hey, get this out of my face, get this out of my nose, my esophagus, down out of me. Like, it just feels really, really uncomfortable. So, yeah, so she like left after that. When I told her I was gonna rip them out of me, she left, and I guess she was like trying to figure out something. In the meantime, I was like full blown Karen, y'all. I looked up the phone number to like patient advocacy, and I was like on the phone with them, and then she came back, and I was like, oh, I was on the phone with patient advocacy, and I was gonna tell them that you guys were refusing to take this out of me when I've asked multiple times. And she was like, oh no, I'm coming to take it out. They told me it's okay, you don't need it, you can take it out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, because that's what I thought. I thought you were coming to take those out. So, she did that. So yeah, she did that, and I was fairly like happy. It was like, okay, everything's good. When I came out of surgery, there was like mild pain. And the crazy thing is, it's like, they went in 3 different parts, or have 3 different incisions in my stomach, but it wasn't bothering me at all in the center part. But it's literally still to this day, which is like a week later, bothering me on the left side of the incision. And it was just like this mild pain, not severe or anything compared to my other surgery that I had, but just like a little bit of a mild pain. So I didn't have like too much to complain about. The only thing that bothered me post-surgery was that I was on a clear liquid. So I was on a clear liquid for days actually afterwards. But in the meantime, I couldn't obviously eat anything. So that lasted for like in all, I didn't eat from Thursday to like, I didn't eat for like a good maybe 5 days. I just had like clear liquid, and then they wanted me to continue on clear liquid, but sometimes my general surgeon, like, she just wanted to see how it would be if I tried to incorporate normal foods, because they were trying to monitor like how my stomach and how everything, you know, like went. So I would get like sick from eating, like stomach cramps, and like feel nauseous. Although I didn't vomit, I was still feeling like a little nauseous. So they wanted to monitor me for a little bit. So surgery happened on Tuesday, and then later that afternoon they came in and they told me exactly what happened. So I had a obstruction to my small bowel. So what happened is from a past abdominal surgery that happened in 2017, where I got ovarian cysts and fibroids removed. There was scarring left over. So what happens is that there's like adhesion that occurs between the scarring tissue and your organs. So my small bowel was, I guess there was like an adhesion that took place. So what they had to do with the surgery was that they had to go in and remove the scarring and kind of like separate the two, because my small bowels was obstructed. So that's what the pain and like the vomiting and like all of that stuff was coming from. So yeah, so all in all, it was just a crazy, crazy, traumatic experience. Like, can you imagine not being able to eat, or like you're just having the severe abdominal pain and the severe vomiting for like ever, for like days, weeks on end? So y'all, it was absolutely crazy. I'm sorry, y'all, I had to fix that little highlighter there on my face. So surgery is on the 4th, and later that night I got to watch like a little bit of fireworks. Again, it was in Tampa, so you know the area around Tampa General Hospital is like, y'all, my necklace keeps falling off. Tampa General Hospital is like really, really beautiful in that area. So I did get to see a little bit of the fireworks, but it was just like a sucky 4th of July. I mean, I'm glad that I was healthy and like surgery went well and this and that, but it's like, oh man, that's not a fun way to spend the 4th. But you know, I'm just happy to be here. So that's all good. Everything turned out okay, and that's all that matters. So surgery was on the 4th, and then I ended up being discharged 2 days later on the 6th. And I have been home since. It'll be maybe like a week. So I am just happy to be here. Obviously, it'll be a week that I've been out of the hospital. Well, it was a week. I think it's been a week and 2 days that I've been out of the hospital. So I'm fairly good, and everything's, you know, I'm recuperating well, or as expected. So I couldn't really ask, you know, for more. I'm just hoping to continue to recuperate, continue to do better and get better, and just kind of rise up from the situation. Everything was fairly back to normal pretty soon. The only thing that I noticed like a few days after surgery or after getting home was that I had to eat a smaller portion size, but I can pretty much eat like the, you know, that I fairly eat pretty healthy in general, but I can pretty much go back to eating like the normal stuff that I was already eating. Again, just smaller portion size. Sometimes I do still feel like a little nauseous, but I haven't been vomiting or anything like that, so that's good. Yeah, so I did get the question of like what signs, what symptoms and things like that to look for, and generally speaking, I didn't necessarily have any previous signs or symptoms. I wasn't like constipated or nothing. It was nothing like that prior to this situation. So now I guess like the good thing is that if this does happen again, which it can, because anytime you have surgery, abdominal surgery, you have the risk of scarring or adhesion happening. At least I'll now know what it is, so I won't be like blindsided by the symptoms or like what's going on. Because yeah, I never want this to occur again. Never, never, never. But I am just glad that it wasn't something like more than what it was, and it wasn't something that couldn't be fixed. So I'm just happy for that, guys. Generally, I don't have much to complain about. I'm just like happy to be better. You know how I think one thing about it is that when you're like going through it and you're like really going through it, definitely medically, like it can be really mentally just frustrating and draining. But, and I was thinking about this the other day, like I always just try to be grateful and just like be thankful. Sometimes randomly, like I'll be in the shower and I'll just be like, you just have like this sigh of relief and you're like, man, I'm thankful that things weren't as bad as they were. Or you're just like, thank you God that things, you know, they may have been pretty darn bad like 2 weeks ago, but it's like, thankfully, or thank you God that things are now better. Because just as quick as something can turn around for like the worst, or in your opinion you may think it may be the worst, it's like you got through it. And I have felt like that a million times before, where like in the midst of it you're just like, oh my God, like how is this situation gonna get any better? But then it's like a week to a week and a half afterwards, I'm just like, woo, sigh of relief. Like I'm not in that state of emergency anymore. And that's just like a really, really good feeling to come across, or to realize that all of that is over. It's like a brand new day. It's a brand new week. And hopefully that's not something that is going to occur again, you know? Or again, or like I said before, if it is something that occurs again, at least I will know how to identify it. Like at least I will know like what's going on. I won't be in the blind about the situation. Y'all, I am just getting ready to film. I'm gonna do another Shein haul, but I thank you guys for listening to my crazy story time of how I ended up in the hospital. I know you guys are wondering where I've been, and you know, content creating is something I like to do, but I have to give it to all of the people that do this, because life doesn't stop for like whatever your job is or whatever type of content you're trying to put out or whatever it is you're doing. It's just, you still have to make time for it. Whereas right now, you know, I obviously don't feel my best, but I do look at other people and I'm just like, you know what, if they can be like delivery and they are filming, or they can do like this or that, then I think that I can do it. So that's what kind of keeps me motivated to do this. But again, I don't want to keep you guys forever and just blab on, but I'm doing better. I know you guys were wondering. Everything's good. I'm recovering well. So I just thought that I'd give you a story time and just sit down and just tell you guys about the situation that happened. This is what happened. So I will see you guys next time.